This morning, boots on the ground. The Army is set to join the clean-up in southeast Queensland as insurance companies are inundated with thousands of claims. 2 teens arrested, accused of sparking a bushfire emergency in Perth South. The record number of asylum seekers arriving on our shores. And the Demon proves he's no joke, stunning the world #1 in straight sets. Good morning, welcome to 7 News. We begin with breaking news this morning, and a child has died following a head-on collision in Victoria. It happened on the Hamilton Highway west of Geelong. The child was declared dead at the scene and 5 others were taken to hospital, including another child in a critical condition. Detectives remain on the scene at Stonehaven as they try to piece together exactly what has happened. Dozens of ADF personnel are set to be deployed today to assist stretched emergency crews and help the disaster recovery in Queensland's southeast. SES crews battling the flood emergency have been swamped since rescue calls on Christmas Day, with Logan, the hinterland and the Gold Coast the worst affected. Insurers have been bombarded with tens of thousands of claims as more than 7,000 homes remain without power. Meanwhile, Victorians face a severe thunderstorm warning for the Central Ranges as 3 separate floods threaten regional towns west of Bendigo this morning. The state's SES units have been inundated with calls as floodwaters continue to cause chaos. Hundreds remain without power as households prepare for a 3rd day of brutal weather. Japanese aviation officials say the Coast Guard plane involved in that fatal collision at a Tokyo airport had not been cleared for takeoff. Live to US correspondent Miley Hogan. Miley, air traffic control transcripts have been released overnight. What do they reveal?
Teegan, they have, and they're starting to give some answers about what went wrong here that caused this collision. The transcripts are of the final communication with the air traffic control tower and the Japan Airlines Airbus and the smaller Coast Guard aircraft. It shows that the Japan Airlines Airbus carrying 379 people was confirmed and cleared to land, and that the Coast Guard aircraft was not given permission to take off. According to officials, the Coast Guard aircraft's last communication with the control tower was to repeat the instruction taxi to holding point. Now that would take it to an area in the airfield where it would wait before given permission to go into the active runway and take off. Now this does contradict the pilot's version of events. He has told investigators that he was given that permission. Authorities have now recovered the voice recording box from that Coast Guard aircraft, and that will be key in trying to figure out what has gone wrong here. But experts stress that normally a number of safeguards would have to fail for a collision like this to occur. Teegan?
Some big revelations there. Thanks, Miley. Well, an Aussie dad who was left fighting for life in Bali is set to fly home to Sydney today on a medical evacuation flight. Kevin Mulligan suffered a brain bleed and fractured neck after falling off a scooter weeks before the birth of his 2nd child. A GoFundMe has now raised more than $100,000 to get him home. 2 juveniles have been arrested for allegedly starting a bushfire in Perth's southern suburbs. The blaze at Champion Lakes was deliberately lit on a total fireban day. Dramatic footage shows the moment one of the suspects was arrested. The fire has now been brought under control and has been downgraded to an advice level. Well, new photos this morning of the man arrested for his role in one of the biggest underworld hits in Sydney's gangland war. 24-year-old Dut Deng has been charged with murder following a dramatic dawn raid. Police say he pulled the trigger when former bikie boss Alan Maradian was shot dead in a public car park in Bondi. Officers say they do expect to make further arrests. There are fears power prices could surge later this year, with the energy regulator under pressure to lift the cap on just how much providers can charge. Sally Guide explains.
More Australian households are turning to solar, but surging costs for solar energy provided to the grid and wholesale prices going into the negative during the middle of the day when solar energy production is at its peak has led to rumblings. Some energy retailers want more money to cover their cost of providing power around the clock. It's seeing the energy regulator urged to increase the default market offer, the price cap on how much retailers can charge, which would take effect from July 1st. first. But it's not a done deal. Climate energy finance experts suggest we could even see the default market offer decrease as the shift toward renewables pumps more electricity into the grid, making it cheaper across the country. Soaring electricity prices have been a key driver of inflation, so any changes will be closely monitored.
Wealthy baby boomers could soon be forced to pay more of their aged care costs under a proposed reform for both residential and home care. A government task force advising Minister Annika Wells to change the way aged care services are means tested. In a report set to be published this month, the task force will also suggest larger contributions from users rather than taxpayers. It's hoped the measures would improve equity and inject new funds into the system. It's been revealed a record number of asylum seekers are arriving into Australia by plane. New data revealing there were 2,000 arrivals a month between August and November, with the bulk of refugees from conflict-free nations. In November, the largest number of asylum seekers were from Vietnam, followed by China, Vanuatu and India, with Sydney Airport the biggest point of arrival since the last election. There are urgent calls for a shark tagging program in South Australia following a spate of deadly attacks. The peak fishing body is proposing the use of technology already deployed interstate, but the state government's not biting.
Spotted off the southeast coast just days ago, a great white shark. One of 1,500 living in SA waters that Wreckfish SA would like to see urgently tagged and monitored.
It's all about peace of mind and a little bit of extra help.
Following an unprecedented 5 shark attacks in 1 year, 3 of them fatal, the fishing body's putting pressure on the government to introduce technology to better protect swimmers, surfers, divers and fishers.
Mitigating shark interactions is quite a big issue that hasn't really been addressed.
It's proposing the use of acoustic monitors and receiver buoys at popular beaches that would trigger an alarm and notification when a tagged shark is nearby. They're already used along the east and west coasts of Australia, but there's a black spot here.
They have been very successful in some states like New South Wales, effectively warning and notifying the water users that a potentially dangerous shark is within the area.
In a statement, the government says it's open to exploring measures and new technologies that can improve safety, but it says systems used interstate have been deemed unsuitable for the vastness and nature of SA's coastline. Currently in SA, we have seasonal aerial and drone patrols, but beachgoers would like to see more.
So we would never expect the sharks to be cold, but we would love to know that you can still get out and surf and still be able to have a good time without that massive fear.
Any measure to stop them coming in close.
It's time to implement a shark safety strategy in South Australia.
Kimberly Pratt, 7 News.
Let's have a quick look at your sport now. And Alex de Minaur has defeated the world's best Novak Djokovic in straight sets. The 6-4, 6-4 win is the Demon's first victory against the world number one as he gears up for what could be his best Australian Open yet.
De Minaur defeats a Titan in a career best win.
It feels surreal, it feels amazing. I'm happy to do it here in Perth and in Australia. I'm just here to prove a lot of people wrong.
And Australia sealed the United Cup tie with Serbia thanks to a 6-1, 6-1 thrashing from Ajla Tomljanovic in the women's singles match. Australia will play either Greece or Germany in the semi-finals on Saturday in Sydney. Captain Pat Cummins took his third consecutive 5-wicket haul against a defiant Pakistan on day one of the Sydney Test. Pakistan fell to 4 for 47 before 80s from Rizwan and Jamal helped the visitors reach over 300. Then entered the retiring David Warner, who began a boundary before being centimetres away from dismissed on the final ball of the day.
Oh, wow. Another full delivery's got back. And just over.
Australia trail by 307 and you can watch all the action from day 2 right here on the screens of 7. We're checking Friday's weather now, and partly cloudy in Brisbane and 32. A shower or two developing in Sydney and 29. Showers and a possible storm in Canberra and 27. Cloudy in Melbourne and 24. Cloudy also in Hobart and 20. Mostly sunny in Adelaide and 30. Sunny in Perth and 32. And a shower or two and a possible storm in Darwin and 34 degrees. Next on 7's Early News, over 100 people killed by 2 bomb explosions in Iran as tensions run high in the Middle East. And Sydney residents kick up a stink over bin collection. An urgent health warning has been issued to millions of people who travelled to Sydney over Christmas and New Year's after 7 people were diagnosed with a severe lung illness. Visitors to the CBD over the past 10 days are being urged to monitor for symptoms, including coughing, fever, short of breath and headaches. Legionnaire's disease is very dangerous and can lead to severe chest infections like pneumonia. There are growing calls for an inquiry into Queensland's parole system, which has come under fire in recent years for significant delays in processing applications and flawed decisions. It follows outrage this week after the killer of Gold Coast teen Jack Beasley was granted parole, only for the decision to be cancelled after the parole board admitted it made a mistake in not properly consulting with the victim's family. There's a growing stink in Sydney's inner west over changes to garbage collections, with the rest of the city warned they're in for the same. Residents are now being told to keep stinking rubbish in the freezer.
It's a battle over bins. Rubbish left to rot, pests moving in after a shake-up to waste disposal.
The stench is like horrendous. You're heaving as you're putting the bins out.
Jackson Jarvis lives in a house with 5 people, including a baby. Rubbish builds up, especially when red bins are only collected every 14 days. The advice from council:
just put the nappies in the freezer in a bag and then put them in the bin when it's time to collect. Which is a joke.
The Inner West now one of 4 councils to replace the weekly general rubbish pickup with food waste collection.
Last week, someone stole our spare red bin because obviously they don't have enough space. It just shows you how desperate everyone's gotten.
Lots of trash talk in Balmain too.
The flies and the moths, it's really, really disgusting.
The red bins that they do tend to overflow. It is a bit stinky, I must say.
And we've got 2 dogs, so it's, even over 1 week you're going to get a little bit of smell.
The state government will force all councils to introduce food and organic waste collection by 2030. But while it's been rolled out, there's likely to be more of this on our streets. In the city of Sydney, another garbage crisis blamed on privatised rubbish collection.
We've got maggots, rats and waste absolutely everywhere.
A political stink on the streets. Heather Richardson, 7 News.
More than 100 people have been killed by 2 bomb explosions in Iran. The blast struck a large crowd commemorating the anniversary of the assassination of slain General Qasem Soleimani. At least 170 people were wounded in the bombings. Iran's state television called the blasts a terror attack. It comes as tensions run high in the Middle East following the assassination of Hamas's second-in-command in Lebanon. The first SpaceX rocket launch of 2024 has gone off without a hitch. A Falcon 9 rocket blasted off from the Space Force base in California overnight. The rocket was carrying 21 satellites into orbit for SpaceX's Starlink internet system. The first stage of the Falcon 9 rocket launch was very successful off the coast of California. Checking finance now, the Dow Jones is down 232 points. The Nasdaq lost 126 points. In London, the FT 100 fell 39 points and Germany's DAX lost 230 points. Closer to home, Japan's Nikkei closed down 75 points. Hong Kong's Hang Seng fell 142 points. The All Ords lost 110 points and the ASX 200 is down 104 points. On the commodities market, and gold is trading at $2,032 an ounce. Oil is $72 a barrel, and the Aussie dollar is buying 67 US cents, 96 Japanese yen, and $1.07 New Zealand. Next on 7's Early News, what sparked a pursuit on foot in Perth, on the road and into backyards. And Laurie Evans' astonishing innings to continue the Perth Scorchers' ruthless, unbeaten streak. Dramatic vision has surfaced of a wild police chase in Perth. Officers pulled a man over in Trigg on the weekend and say they discovered he didn't hold a licence. The 29-year-old then darted through traffic before a stranger joined officers, chasing him into an empty parking lot. He's been charged with unlicensed driving and obstructing police. Irresponsible drivers across South Australia could soon face hefty fines as the state plans to roll out its first mobile speed cameras. Designed to crack down on motorists using their phones, fines of more than $500 will apply and drivers will be stung 3 demerit points. The new locations proposed include Jepps Cross, Regency Park, Hindmarsh, Torrensville and Darlington, and all will come into effect from September. 2/3 of Australian adults are considered overweight or obese, and that figure is only going to go up. The CSIRO claims to have found a sustainable weight loss program backed by science, with a full refund available for those who don't get the results that they want.
Shredding unwanted kilos a common New Year's resolution, and health professionals say there's a way to go about it.
These yo-yo diets where you just lose weight and it all bounces back halfway through the year are not going to work for people.
Boasting the CSIRO's scientifically proven total wellbeing diet, with 10 years of research now behind it. Grandmother Wendy Botha is one of the 1.2 million Australians who've completed the 12-week program.
I managed to top the scales at 114.2 kilos. And I was feeling terrible.
CSIRO dieters have lost almost 560,000 kilograms over the past decade. That's the equivalent of 46 double-decker buses. The most popular food choice, bananas.
It's a higher protein diet. It's higher in complex carbohydrates and less in refined sugars.
A staggering 14 million Australians are overweight or obese, and health officials warn that figure is only set to increase if drastic action isn't taken.
If we don't make a dent in that figure, it's a risk for cardiovascular disease, joint problems, diabetes, infectious diseases.
Wendy Botha now able to set new intentions this year.
My goal this year is half marathon, and I've never been a runner.
Sarah Jones, 7 News.
Taking a look at sport now, an Aussie young gun Alex de Minaur has defeated the world's best Novak Djokovic in straight sets. The 6-4, 6-4 win is the Demon's first victory against a number one opponent as he gears up for what could be his best Aussie Open yet.
De Minaur defeats a Titan in a career best win.
It feels surreal, it feels amazing. I'm happy to do it here in Perth and in Australia. I'm just here to prove a lot of people wrong.
Australia sealed the United Cup tie with Serbia thanks to a 6-1, 6-1 thrashing from Ajla Tomljanovic in the women's singles match. Australia will now play either Greece or Germany in the semi-finals on Saturday in Sydney. Captain Pat Cummins took his third consecutive 5-wicket haul against a defiant Pakistan on day one of the Sydney Test. Pakistan fell to 4 for 47 before 80s from Rizwan and Jamal helped the visitors reach over 300. Then entered the retiring David Warner, who began with a boundary before being centimetres away from dismissed on the final ball of the day.
Oh, wow. Another full delivery's got back. And just over.
Australia trail by 307, and you can watch all the action from day two here on your screens of 7. Well, the Perth Scorchers and Brisbane Heat remain undefeated in this season's Big Bash. Perth's Laurie Evans smashed an 18-ball half-century as the Scorchers cruised to a 42-run thumping over the Strikers, while the Heat defeated the Sydney Sixers despite having almost 2 players very seriously injured.
Watch out! Oh! Just.
Rain meant that the Heat won by 3 runs with Duckworth Lewis to remain in first place, the Scorchers a second. Well, the worst kept secret in rugby league is finally out. 3-time premiership player Jerome Louis has signed a 5-year deal with the West Tigers, which will commence at the end of the season.
Getting the keys to a team sort of thing was sort of the other motivation. Being my own guy, writing my own story was another big part of it.
Luai has played 107 games for his childhood club, Penrith. Next on 7's Early News, a closer look at how the weather's shaping up in your part of the country. The first coins featuring King Charles have been printed in Australia. Millions of new coins with the new monarch have entered circulation. His Majesty is facing left, the opposite direction to his late mother, Queen Elizabeth. Around the capitals, partly cloudy in Brisbane and 32, a shower or two developing in Sydney and 29, showers and a possible storm in Canberra and 27, cloudy in Melbourne and 24, cloudy also in Hobart and 20, mostly sunny in Adelaide and 30, sunny in Perth and 32, and a shower or two and a possible storm in Darwin and 34 degrees. And that's 7's early news. I'm Teegan. Now it's time for Sunrise with Matt and Mon.
Holiday horror, new details from the Aussies who survived a catastrophic collision running from their burning plane in Tokyo. Those caught up speak out live on Sunrise as the air traffic control transcript is released.
New overnight, Victorian road horror. 5 people in hospital, a child killed near Geelong.
Happening today, the Army's long-awaited touchdown in Queensland's disaster